everyone, and welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations. We are having a second special broadcast this week, and as you can see, I have a lot of special guests with me today, so I'm super excited. July is our SPED Homeschool Awareness Month, where we just share community stories with you so that you know you're not alone. I think oftentimes we feel like I am the only one doing this, the only one struggling with this, and we want you to know that you're not. There are so many other people out there who have walked this path before you, are walking it with you, and there will be many to follow. And so we share our stories as an encouragement with one another to just keep fighting the good fight and keep moving forward in this calling that we have to home educate our children who have learning struggles. And so we do this broadcast, and it's sponsored by SPED Homeschool, and I am the founder and CEO of SPED Homeschool, and our main goal is to empower families to home educate struggling learners. So I encourage you to check out our website at spedhomeschool.com for more encouragement, as well as podcasts that we have of past episodes. This show has been going on for over 4 years, so you can find that that podcast and all of those shows out on the internets and various places, but also our YouTube channel has all that content as well. So you can just look for SPED Homeschool on YouTube. So we are going to talk to this panel of parents who have been in the trenches and know what it's like to home educate struggling learners, and have worked also with kids who struggle. And so we're excited to be able to share their experience with you, and want you also to know that you can be part of our conversation. So if you're watching on YouTube, just make comments down in the feed. We'll see those, and we'd like to include those in our conversation. If you're watching on Facebook, our Facebook page, you can do the same thing. So just feel free to join in and be part of this ongoing conversation this hour. So we're going to just talk about finding your inner teacher. I think all of us struggle with that. Who am I as a teacher? I know when I first started homeschooling, I didn't want to be a teacher. I was the furthest thing from it. And I wasn't, I heard the word phonics and I had never even heard that word before. So that's how bad off I was. So just wherever you're at, we kind of try to figure out, what is this teaching thing, and how do I do this, and how do I teach my child? And we just seem like we're told by the experts we can't. So we want to encourage you this hour. And Kara Sue, thank you for joining us on YouTube. We are glad that you are here with us. Thanks for saying hi. And I am super excited for you to also meet my guest today. So all of our guests today are from Iconic Learning, and I would just love for all of you to just start out and sharing your homeschooling journey and what have been some of the highlights that your family has enjoyed while homeschooling, just so our community can get to know you a little bit better. Who wants to start?
Well, maybe I should comment just a little bit. I'm not actually a homeschooler. I'm a person that has designed programs for homeschools and other schools. And so that's kind of my role here. But I'll just leave it at that for me. Okay. I'm Dr. Stephen Ingersoll. So go ahead.
Yeah. And Lori?
So I did actually homeschool for a few years. I think, different than a lot of parents in terms of homeschooling. When I started, it wasn't because my kid wasn't getting what he needed at school or they weren't getting what they needed. They were actually at a charter school in West Palm Beach, and it was an amazing school with amazing teachers. And they were so supportive, even though we were struggling to figure out what was going on with my son. But they were so supportive. And so what happened for us is that we have two sets of kids, so they're older ones, and then they're like 15 years difference in the second set of kids that we have. And so they were all gone. And my husband, we owned a company, and my husband was able to get to all the horseback riding lessons and all the ballet and all the baseball and everything. But the second set, we lived in West Palm Beach, and our company was in Fort Lauderdale. And so he was missing everything. And I was going on vacations without him and taking the kids and just, everything. Mm-hmm. And so he had been wanting to sell the company. And finally, I just said, if you're not going to be part of our lives, then you need to sell the company and we'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. So then he decided that we needed to, with the sale of the company, get an RV and just travel for a little while.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, a couple of months, we're going to figure out where we want to land. Nope. We were in that thing for 3 years. Oh. And it was, and somebody, we were out to dinner and somebody said, so how long are you going to be doing this? And, a couple of years. And I about fell off my chair and said, the next morning, we have to talk, because I wasn't planning on homeschooling my kids for 2 years. I didn't like you. I didn't want to be a teacher. That wasn't what I went to school for. So we did. We had to figure it out. And the school that they were at was they were just wonderful. And this is like 20 years ago that we did this, and mm-hmm. homeschool was not that prevalent at that time.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm.
We had to figure that out as well. But while we were doing it, we traveled all over North America and a little bit in Mexico and in a lot of Canada.
Wow.
And so, we had a lot of highlights. Our kids got to eat indigenous food and learn cultures, right mm-hmm. there. And they got to see 50 states and, spend the summers in Alaska, and their PE for 7 weeks was in Breckenridge. And so we were very, very fortunate that we were able to do that with our homeschooling journey.
Yes. Yeah. That it's a tight space, but it gives you a lot of freedom on the outside of your space. I know we've homeschooled in our RV twice over our 19 years of homeschooling, and it was an adventure. Let's just put it that way. Brought everybody closer together. So yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, it is, we always talk about people being forced into homeschooling through, just educational situations with their kids. But there are so many other situations where homeschooling plays a part where it's more advantageous to do that, just so we have that freedom as a family or within our career or family life. And so that's a good thing to point out, Lori, that we choose homeschooling for a lot of different reasons. And it can be that we have a good setup, but we just need something different for a while.
So, yeah, and it certainly did bring our family together. You don't live in a 400 square foot space with a dog and a bunny and a cat. And not figure that out.
Right, exactly.
You learn personal space really quickly.
Yes. We found that all that training really helped when COVID hit. Our family's like, yeah, we're used to spending time with each other. Awesome. Well, thank you. So, Dr. Alicia and Julie, do you want to do some quick intros too?
Sure. I'm Julie, and my claim to fame isn't so much, I don't get the 50 states. I haven't been to all 50, but I have been to the inland 48. So
wow.
I'm almost up there with you, Lori. I still got Alaska and Hawaii. So, but yeah, the adventure part is the part that matters the most. I am the owner of the Iconics Learning Clinic up here in Oakdale, Minnesota. And my connection to the homeschool world, I love the idea of that whole Iconics world is meeting a kid at the level they're at. And
we talk so
finding out
much
what
about
they're doing in their minds, how they're doing it. And I think that is the power that a homeschool environment can just be supportive of. In a traditional school, your age dictates what you're supposed to learn or where you're supposed to be. But homeschool, you get to meet that kid, find out what their passions are, what their talents, God-given talents are already. I am so in favor of the homeschool world. I love everything that you're doing, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Thanks. Yes. Well, I'm glad that you're here. Yeah. Super excited. So as you're seeing that this is a community right here of homeschool support. And I just love that I get to be part of this team's conversation today, and you get to join me with that. So Dr. Alicia, you want to do a quick intro too?
Sure. So I'm the owner of the Iconics Learning Clinic in Greer, South Carolina. So that's where I'm located. And, I'm educated in chiropractic. That's what my doctorate is in. But I've been exposed to all these alternative educational methods from a childhood, because Dr. Steve is my dad, actually. So it's kind of just been talked about for my whole life. And it's just how I look at education, like Julie said, all kids develop at different rates. And so that requires us to take that into consideration when we create teaching methods. And, that's what's unique about homeschool is you can create custom teaching methods for each kid. So.
Yes, very, very true. And that, I think, is the first step of finding your inner teacher, is saying, I don't have to do it like everybody else. It doesn't have to look like my neighbor. It doesn't have to look like my friend. My child needs what my child needs. And plus, I'm unique too. And I have to teach the way my bent is as well as my child's bent. But coming to that realization is the first step. So thank you, Dr. Alicia, for pointing that out, because that is very, very important. So we have.
If I may comment.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Indeed. What we've done as a society is tried to wedge children into an existing system.
Yes.
And we should be doing the opposite. We should be designing our educational system around the child, because they come in an infinite variety of
yes, they do.
in developmental timetables and attributes. And so we really ought to be designing individual educational programs. And of course, that's exactly what homeschoolers do. And in our educational model, that's precisely what we try to do. We first, we say, we watch and wonder. We watch kids do what they do.
That's good, yes.
And then we wonder why they're doing that. And if we can't figure out the underlying thinking that they're engaged in, let me give you an example. If I were to say, Peggy, I'll use you for an example if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
And tell me what's 7 plus 6?
Well, wait. I have really slow processing speed, so it's 13.
and now I'm real interested in how you know the answer. What did you do in your mind to arrive at the correct answer? What was your method?
I had to finish the 10 of the 7, so I took half a 6, added the 3, and then I had the other 3 to add to the 10.
I see. So that was the method.
Because I think in tens.
So that was the method of thinking that you used. Now, this is a real important diagnostic. So if I ask you, what's 7 plus 7, what would you say?
14.
How did you
And
do
that was a memorized fact.
So
yes.
In other words, you have no awareness of 7 plus 7, but you have full awareness of 7 plus 6. And of course, the 7 plus 7 was obviously easier and quicker.
Right.
And the complexity of 7 plus 6 equals 13 and 7 plus 7 equals 14 are precisely the same. The only difference is what you did to arrive at the answer. So in other words, wouldn't you be better off if all of the single-digit math facts were known in the same way that you knew 7 plus 7? It wouldn't impinge. I took the time to
do that.
It wouldn't impinge. Well, more importantly, when you first learned it, you learned it in this way.
Right.
And so it's real important how kids first learn things, because they keep doing it. It's like me and my golf swing. I first learned my golf swing poorly, and I'm still doing it. Yep. It's real important that we take a look carefully at each child and understand. Like I said, we watch and wonder. We want to understand the thinking that they're involved in, do essentially a little cognitive diagnosis like we just did with you. So I now know that if I could figure out how to get you to do 7 plus 6 in the same way that you do 7 plus 7, I'd be helping you. So that's the kind of thing that we do at Iconics, is we become diagnosticians of thinking. Let's say that.
That's good. Yep. Yeah. And that really leads us into our next question, because I was going to ask, just what kind of training as parents did you seek out in order to really feel like you were equipped. And sometimes it's that watching and wondering that has to be part of that whole process of, well, what do I need to learn in order, because sometimes just getting the right training isn't the answer. It's knowing what the training is that you need. So I love that segue into that.
Yeah, that's whenever we work with a child or a family, we say at least half our job is teaching mom. Because when mom knows what the child needs, watch out. That child's going to get it. Okay?
Exactly.
That child will get what they need.
Lori can speak directly to that.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you, Lori, on just how that process was for you.
Well, it would have been easier after I was done.
We all say that.
The interesting thing actually is that after I homeschooled, I ended up opening up a special needs school. So we had a private special needs school for 5 years. And that experience and equipping myself for the homeschooling actually really came in very, very handy when I was trying to do the school. And that's because of Iconics. Mm-hmm. But when we first started, we had no idea. I think I might have mentioned that. And so I went to the school my kids were at and asked them a bunch of questions. And they're like, well, here's your curriculum. They hand me a bunch of questions.
And that's what they normally do. Yes. Uh-huh.
And at that time, there was no online anything. And you can't do online when you're in an RV and you have no internet anyway. Yeah. And so it really was us just sitting down and trying to say, okay, what are we going to do? And the first thing we did was decide we were going to run it like a business, because your child's education is way too important to not give it a lot of thought and commitment. And so that was the first thing. So we set up a schedule. So every morning the kids got up at a certain time, they ate breakfast, they did dishes, they had to make their bed, and they were at the table ready to learn by 8:30. And we had a schedule for our classes, and they had to be there. And we had schedules we were very fortunate, because whatever we had, when we were learning about the Revolutionary period, we were in Boston and Philadelphia and New York.
Right,
and
yes.
Everything that they were learning in these books, we were dragging them out and making them go see. Mm-hmm. And, I remember clearly my daughter, after about the 5th field trip that week, she was like, please don't make me go on any more field trips. I just want to stay home. Can I just do homework at home? And so, it sometimes it seems like, oh, well, that was really great. But my kids still were like, oh, my gosh, it's still a learning experience, no matter how fun it was.
Right.
But for the stuff that we didn't know, and Steve is going to cringe at this, but he already knows, we took those books from the front to the back because we didn't want to miss anything. And everything in that book, our kids learned. Every concept, everything, and then we saw things. So, in our geography book, we saw the world's largest ball of twine in Copper City, Kansas. I guarantee you, we had to stop in Copper City, Kansas, to see this big ball of twine, and the town that has all these twine things all over it. And we've got a picture of us hugging the big ball of twine. And so, everything we did, we just tried to do hands-on, because we felt it was a better way to learn, and we were just fortunate in that. Now homeschooling and online support and parent groups on Facebook, there's so much more support now than there ever was in 20 years. But if we did it, there's anybody out there can do it.
Exactly. Yes. Yep.
While you may have made Dr. Steve cringe a little bit with going front to back to a textbook, I think he'd be very supportive of how sticky that you made the content, where you made it important to them, or you made it experiential for them.
That's a good point.
Thing that they can't do anything with, like these symbols on a page that, that means nothing to them until you made it make sense to them or made it matter to them. So in our line of work, or in Iconics, we try to make things sticky, and that might be a good transition for Dr. Steve, because I think he has ready some Bill of Rights or something. We do the sticky stuff because anytime that we file all our experiences and our data, we file that in our head. And how we file it is like the 6+7 or the 7+7. We filed it with a 10+3+, whatever you did. So
right.
you filed 7 and 7 in a quicker way. So we like to file things and make things stickier. So if you need to retrieve it, that 7 plus 7 is the same as 6 plus 7 because
the fast stuff is the visual stuff, and
right.
So we all remember faces better than names because faces are pictures and names are symbols. So if we want to, and that's true for everyone except the congenitally blind, but that's a whole different story. But if we can convert salient data of information from a lesson into a pictorial array, it's much easier to commit to instantaneous or, let's say, photographic memory. We sometimes call it eidetic memory. It's very powerful. It's what we do naturally. Like if I ask you, where did you have lunch yesterday? You would picture where you were. Or do you own a bicycle? You picture your bicycle. So it's kind of like the operating system of human consciousness is this imagery business. So if we match information into that form, and Peggy, I think you have an example there. If you could show that on the screen. Here's the Bill of Rights. And so you see at the 12 o'clock position, the freedom of press, religion, and assembly. The next is the right to bear arms. So if you can put a little humor into the image. And then we also gesture. So as Julie just did, so in a little game of charades, it really embeds it. So if I do this, the kids yell out, right to bear arms. Or if I do this freedom of speech.
Right.
The Third Amendment is the prohibition of quartering the military in your domiciles. So we have a soldier sleeping between ma and pa kettle there. And the search and seizure, prohibition of search and seizure, you must have a war ant in order to and equal justice under the law is the Fifth Amendment. And so equality is the sign language for that. And prohibition of double jeopardy. So you see the double jeopardy there. Sixth Amendment is speedy trial. Seventh Amendment is the right to redress your grievance for any matter in civil court over $20. So you can bring suit for any matter over $20. So we have a $20 suit there.
Oh, okay.
And the Eighth Amendment is the prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment or excessive bail. The Ninth is to do with where our rights come from. They come from God. So you see the pie, the whole pie of rights coming from the sky through a padlock. So that's kind of the philosophy of John Locke, the natural rights. And then, of course, the 10th Amendment is the limited powers. So that is restraining the federal government, which is represented by the large ape that's bending those bars. So the rights that come to us naturally are given from the citizen to the state. That you see, if that was a little bigger, you could see that he's handing a slice of the pie to the waiter, who has a towel that says state. And then the states give a slice of that slice to the federal government. That's how powers are delivered to the federal government. Only they start with the citizen, they move to the state, and then the state to the federal government. And somehow I think we kind of got that backwards. So anyway, that's the Bill of Rights. And so we would commit that to memory and put a gesture to each one of those images and play little games where if I said, right to bear arms, you'd make the gesture like Julie did. And if I did the sign language for ant, you'd know that I was talking about the Fourth Amendment. And then, so we use these gestures and keywords and image maps to solve two big problems for homeschoolers and all teachers. And that is lesson planning, because we have designed the whole curriculum in this way. So lesson planning and student engagement. Those are the two biggies that make teachers cry. So if you can solve lesson planning and engagement, you've got to.
Yeah, and Mackenzie also makes a point, and she must work with you guys too, or is one of your parents, but she says the children are then encouraged to show off the skills that they learn to help solidify their knowledge and boost self-esteem, which a lot of our kids that struggle, that self-esteem part is so important to include in the schooling aspect, because
that's right.
we spend a whole month on mental health, and it makes it. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Once the child really gets it, then they teach someone else, but they don't give up the secret until they show off a little bit. And that really does help.
Yeah, that's great.
Mackenzie's the daughter who doesn't like to go on field trips anymore.
Okay. That's funny. Yes, it's interesting how your kids, when they get older, they start processing this homeschooling thing from a different perspective.
Well, she would love to, but all of my kids have said, man, if you could have just waited until we were like teenagers and then done it, we would have probably really appreciated it a lot more. And I'm like, well, for big people, very hard.
So, Peggy, I know that you've had previous guests on that are all about gameplay, and I watched that episode, and that was just fundamental to what we do, because you're not really, you're tricking the kid into gaining information, but you're doing it in a way that they're continually engaged. It's that one graphic that Dr. Steve just showed. There are so many games that we play with that. We take one away, say which one is missing. We throw a flash graphic at them, and they either do the gesture or they tell the Bill of Rights. There are so many, and then we have these pods that make everything big movement groups, like your big muscle groups. It is endless the amount of games that can be played with just that circle graphic.
Yeah, and I think what you guys are bringing out, and it's a really good point, is that oftentimes we dismiss what is fun, what is enjoyable, and what is engaging as not learning. And that is truly the core to where we really learn, like Dr. Steve was talking about. It's how we engage that smartness that's in all children. And we unfortunately dismiss it as, well, it's way too fun to be educational.
the greatest teaching methodology of all time is play. Play is the finest, is the most powerful learning tool in all of human history. If we can figure out how to extend play into the learning environment, we've got the magic elixir. And that's really what Iconics is about, is trying to almost gamify. The kids learn the curricular data in order to play the game. And so the mastery of the curriculum becomes, just a reason so that I get to play the game. And
you have to be equipped. It's like knowing the rules, and yes, exactly. So it encourages them. I know my kids really didn't want to start reading until they realized in their games they had to be able to read the comments from other people. They're like, oh, all of a sudden reading is really important.
Exactly.
So yes, just make it applicable to them, and it's such good information, because I think we as parents want to be able to harness that seriousness within our home, and yet I think the more we do that, the more we make learning more difficult, and less like it's supposed to be, and less like how we were meant to teach our kids in the first place. So I'm glad that you guys are all highlighting this. Yes, and we had another commenter on YouTube. Mrs. McNitt said, "Play is the language to learn." Exactly.
That's right.
Yes, it is so true. And I think we as parents have to relearn how to play, because we have had it driven out of us. And it's hard. It's hard to realize that and to reprogram, just like, you were talking about, Dr. Steve, we have to, we've been trained in such a way, and we have to then get rid of that original training and replace it with,
we have a little saying in Iconics, and it's, children play to learn and teachers learn to play.
Mm-hmm. That is very, very good. Yes. Yep. So on that line, and kind of on the line of my original question in this area, is how did each of you overcome maybe some hindrances of being able to play in your own life? I know I didn't give that to you ahead of time, so if you want to skip it, that's fine. But is there anything that you found that be helpful that you could give as advice to our audience about how to become more playful as an adult?
Okay, so I think that is a conscious choice that you have to make. And I think with just everything else, you're running a business, you're homeschooling, you're doing the things you need to do. And if play is what you need to do to help your kids learn, then you make a conscious decision to do that. And then you figure out how you're going to do it. And there are some people who are just so serious and they never want to play, and they'll have a harder time. I'm fortunate the school that we were running, which we also have a clinic here in Atlanta, that's all we do with these kids is play. And it really does make a difference. And if you know that you're playing and you know that it's going to help them to learn, you just do it. If we thought that being serious and drilling the math facts until they were, then you do that. Well, that's how we taught our kids, but that's not how you're supposed to teach your kids when you're doing it. So it's just it's a commitment you make, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot more enjoyable to play than to
exactly
grind away, and it works so much better. If you represent data in humorous image form, everybody, the learning disabled child of any sort, they all learn better and have more fun doing it. And so it's the way to go. We've all had our history of how we arrived at this, but I'm a developmental optometrist, and studying the development of visual function, and I don't mean seeing, I mean mind seeing, seeing with one's mind.
Yeah.
That brought me naturally into the field of education, and so that's how we ended up in this sort of 1 foot in each land. I'm an eye doctor, but the application of my knowledge is really in the field of education more than optometry, and so it's kind of a funny mix. But it really is how well can you see with your mind. I like to use the Sherlock Holmes analogy. Sherlock Holmes spots a little tiny signal from the environment, a bit of clay on a guy's shoe or something, and up pops this enormous amount of imagery that tells the whole tale of the case, and he solves it. And really, that's what education is about. Education is about expanding the imagery of meaning from tinier and tinier clues from the environment. And when you think about reading, that's what it is. There are these little marks on a page. The real goal is the creation of imagery.
Exactly. Otherwise, the comprehension does not happen. Exactly.
Right. And so we have to keep aware of what we're really doing here. We're trying to spark that most powerful aspect of human consciousness, which is imagery. And imagery is the vehicle by which we travel through time and space. We think our way into the past and into the future through imagery. So we need to hone
So Dr.
that
Alicia,
skill.
you had something to add to that?
Well, I think about my education personally from, a child, even through higher education, and the teachers or the classes or the content that was taught in the most playful and fun way is the stuff that I personally remember. And I can't even really say other than it was just fun and the teacher made it enjoyable, that's why I remember it so well. And I mean, that plays directly into how the brain functions too. It's like if you have some sort of fun, playful connection to the material, it embeds it further into your memory. So
yes. Yeah, one of our viewers just shared an experience like that. She said that we walked to the park the other day and started counting the ducks and adding them up as we found them. Her son Tristan, he said to me, "Mom, I haven't done math like that before." I told him, "Nope, you haven't." That's great.
The way to do math.
Yep.
And what if those ducks were in certain spatial arrays? You would be able to, without counting them, like if they were set up like a 5 on a dice, in that spatial arrangement, you'd immediately recognize 5 as opposed to counting the ducks or the dots. So we can take advantage of that eidetic or photographic memory capacity for instant recognition. That's why the little tagline of Iconics is learning at the speed of sight, meaning I see it and I recognize the pattern. And the more we can take curricular data and put it into that into a recognizable pattern, the faster kids will learn, and the more easily they'll learn. So that's really
we're made to look for patterns, and that's right. Yeah, and God made everything in the world that has patterns. That's right. Fits in so nicely.
Indeed.
We did have a question, from one of our viewers, just that about the Iconics resources, and she wanted to know if they were all Christian based or are there any secular?
They're Christian based, but they are applicable to all learning situations. We are math is math. We are a Christian organization. That is to say, the participants are of faith, but these methods are usable for all people, as you might expect, and so go ahead.
Iconics is both a diagnostic tool. We offer diagnostic tools, and it's a teaching method. And a teaching method is not necessarily secular or Christian, but the content that we create, because we also create custom curriculum, the curriculum we've created thus far is Christian based.
But it's malleable. That is
completely customizable.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. So oftentimes this time of year, especially, we have a lot of families who are on the fence. I think I might start homeschooling this year, or they're at that point where I don't know if we can continue another year because I don't think last year went so well. So what advice would you have for parents who are trying to think of, do I do this again? How do I change up things to make it more successful? Or how do I start on a more successful track than my child had maybe in the public school, but they really have nowhere to start from, or they're kind of muddling around some ideas. What kind of advice do you have for them?
Well, I'd like to, I hate to take up all the oxygen here, but I would encourage every parent to homeschool. That's my opinion. And we're here to support all homeschoolers and church schools, or any collection of parents who want to group together and form a school. It's absolutely doable, and we have all the tools to support these folks, parents, to take control of the education of their kids themselves, and they can do it. Yeah. Any reasonable adult can do it, and do it well. In fact, dare I say, better, because I believe that. And I've created a number of schools, charter schools, other schools, and they've been very successful. And lay people can learn to do this just fine. In fact,
Dr. Alicia?
So the success of each child is based majority on how much mom or parents know. And I think it's super important to encourage and just state that, you can do it, and it's completely doable, and there's nothing wrong with your kid. You will find a way to make them succeed or help them succeed.
Yeah.
Mom really needs to know, especially in kids that are in special ed, that have been labeled. Children don't have, big problems with their brain, most of them. They are learning in a different way. For example, Peggy, our little example there, 7 plus 6 is a little bit of a problem area, not because you're not intelligent, but because you did that one differently. We really need to make a cognitive diagnosis. Then you know what exactly your target is. So when kids are struggling, we need to look at the underlying thinking. We need to make a diagnosis of the thinking. We need to become a diagnostician of thinking. Mom needs to know, what is the child's thinking pattern that underpins their problem area? And if we don't know the answer to that, then we really don't know what we're doing. We're just trying stuff, hoping for the best. We need a diagnosis.
Right.
Go ahead.
And that's a lot of times why we tell people that they need to get a second set of eyes or a team around them to help.
Right.
Because those people can really speak a lot of truth into that situation. Yeah. Yeah. Laura, you had something to share?
Well, I just think having done this once before, and certainly at a time when there were not a lot of resources available, it can really be overwhelming.
Right.
It can be overwhelming. And I know the trend is for people to start homeschooling. And I think that's great because, we really believe that safe, loved learning is the way to go. And there is nobody that's going to keep a kid as safe as a parent is. And there's nobody who's going to, it's just that what we do as parents. They're going to be safe. They're going to be loved. And so then it's, how do we teach them? And there are so many resources out there. Iconics is out there. You guys are out there. There are parent resource groups, churches that have small pods together. If you want to know something about homeschool, you can get on Google and start learning in a hurry and find just a ton of support. It's just like, especially if you are in a special needs arena, there are so many people now who are out there who can share experiences and tell you where to go and how to get started. And so it's while it seems overwhelming, I would encourage anybody who's thinking about taking their kid out of a bad situation or doing something better for their family to go ahead and try it.
Yeah, that's great advice, because oftentimes we picture that it is way harder than it is. In our mind, we can kind of get these ideas of it's just too daunting. There's too much stuff I have to think about. I'm not equipped for that. And we idolize those people that have been doing it for 10 years or more. And they've just learned to just live through the mistakes. I've learned, because I always thought I'm going to know everything after 5 years of homeschooling. And I realized I just didn't know anything. I just got good at knowing nothing and still going. So yes, that encouragement, that just to get started and to surround yourself with other people, that supportive community, and to just keep learning. There are so many resources, and that's why we do these shows, is because not every situation is going to be the same. Then maybe a video that really speaks to one parent is not going to speak so much to another. We just have to be equipped and ready to help our kids where they're at. So all awesome advice. Anything else on that topic that you guys want to share? You got anything, Julie?
I was just going to say, just to round it out with play. People make the dumbest games. And it's because, we got to let a kid be bored, and they will come up with games.
Oh yes, they will.
I mean, granted, if your own kid comes up to you and says, "I'm bored," and you say, "Well, I got 7 things for you to do. Let me help you out with that," or just let the kid be bored, let them play outside. They will come up with games. I mean, we had hopscotches as children. You take a paper clip and try to put it in a cup. That's not a real game. That's hey, I don't know what to do right now, and there's a cup and a paper clip right there. So let the kid,
right, exactly.
You know how many mind opportunity, or how many skill sets you need to have in order to get a paper clip into a cup.
I was just going to say some of us nerds here would be like, oh, that's great.
Right. What a dumb, silly game. You have to have dexterity. You have to have prediction. You have to have spatial awareness. All these things in a dumb game. It is outstanding, and I love every part of it.
And it emphasizes that you don't have to spend a lot of money.
Yes.
Right.
So true.
Just little trinkets,
whatever you've got laying around,
a piece of string and a ball, a tennis ball. I mean, there's just so much that can be done if you're looking at targeted skills and seeing understanding the hierarchies of brain development and what's next. And here are a few games that help that child. And if you target just at the right level, those kids love it. They engage. But if you task way up here or way down here, they disengage. So when kids that goes right along with the more mom knows, the better outcome kid has. Is if mom just understands, like, this is just the basics of how the brain operates, and just little clues that kids give, and they tell us, hey, I'm not ready for this, you know, and they'll put up a wall and, there's nothing you can do, but that's a sign that, like, okay, I just have to take a step back in brain development, and then they will eventually get there, because that's just how we have been designed.
Yes.
My favorite disengagement is, this is dumb.
Yes.
If you've never heard that, get ready, moms. If you've never heard this, well, this is dumb. Right. It's because it's either too low or way too high. They don't want to look dumb, so they're going to say, well, this is dumb, and then they have that disengagement, and that's where sometimes behaviors show up that
exactly.
Want. But if you hit that sweet spot of, it's just a little bit of a challenge, but it's right there. Like they can get some right, but then there's that one, like, oh man, I'll get that one right next time. That is the sweet spot, and those aha moments are just, I love them, and that's why I'm doing this.
That when kids disengage, we're making the mistake.
That's right.
Kids are learning machines. They love to play and learn, and when we task and they avoid, we're making a mistake. We need to look at our own tasking and figure out where are we mismatched? Are we too low? Are we too high? We aren't in the proper sequence. So it's really diagnostic, and that's kind of what we do with parent training, is just teach mom to be the diagnostician of thinking, so she knows what to do by general rule, not every little thing, but by observation. She watches and watches kids do what they do, and wonders why they're doing it. Diagnosing the invisible part of the kid, their mind. That's really what we need to do.
Yeah, that's so good, because we can either blame everything on us that it's not working because we're not using the curriculum right. I know I hear all these things from parents I've talked to over the years, or my child is just being stubborn. They're not doing anything, and you guys really hit the nail on the head. We're not challenging at the right level, and because a child is wired to learn, that's why they ask so many questions. That's why they want to know about so much stuff, and to the point that they drive us crazy with their questions when they get on a topic that they really love. And yes, so learning is natural. We just have to not make it unnatural in our desire to push our kids ahead. Yes.
we've kind of done that in our educational system. It is natural for kids to move and play and be free in the space, and we confine kids to seats and have them not move and just listen to like the Charlie Brown teacher, wah, 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 and Bueller.
Right, exactly.
And it's just not right. It's not the way to learn, and kids will not flourish that way.
But we have a little boy that we're working with in our clinic. He's 7, and he's struggling to read. And he gets a note sent home almost every day that like, hey, your son is just not engaging. We can't get him to do this and that. And guess what subjects it's in? Reading, writing, and math. And he doesn't disrupt. He just gets out of his seat, walks over to the play blocks, and is just playing with toys. He's not disrupting really. But most people wouldn't look at that and say, oh, it's because he's disengaging because he's just not ready for that type of material. And so,
he might as well be telling the teachers, hey, I am at this level of development. I'm going to walk over here and show you by playing with these blocks.
And it's like a neon sign, him saying, hey, pay attention to what I'm telling you.
You're harming me. You're, and they continue to push symbols at this kid when he hasn't. How's the kid going to figure out how to deal with the symbols that represent physical items when he hasn't figured out how to deal with the physicality of the world? That's really what's going on with hyperactivity.
He can't even separate his fingers in his brain, let alone.
You ask him to do this, and this happens. It's a lack of understanding of development. And every mom can learn these lessons quite easily and be way more astute as to her own child than what's going on in the public schools. And that's the truth of it. And I think parents should take education in their own hands. We're here to help, and it's something that can be done by every parent. It can be daunting, but group together and learn this stuff. It's not that tough. It's fairly.
Yep.
When you hear about it, when you learn about it, it's almost common sense, really.
Yes. That is.
Well,
I mean, but it takes a mind shift. I mean, like we were talking about at the very beginning, it takes that shift from understanding that education is not what we've been told it is in an institutionalized type of setting. Education is more to that customized, that one-on-one, that engagement, and and so much more. Creative Minds Homeschooling talked about how they learned about the human body last year, and she said her daughter loved it, but her son hated it and said he wouldn't learn a thing. But then later he came back to her and was talking about, does your heart really do that? So we have no idea even what they're catching, because a lot of times we teach sibling groups, of different ages, and we just teach. But the kids, they do catch things that we sometimes think
groups,
are not.
Multi-age groups is natural. I mean, think about it. For an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old is a god. They look at 10-year-olds like they're on a pedestal. So if the older kids are the little kids learn from the older kids, and especially if you can group them. It's great for the older kids, too, because they learn to be empathetic to the little guy. And so it's really a good thing to multi-age. This business of homogeneous age groups is not natural. It's not. It really doesn't work. We should be teaching in multi-age groups.
Yes,
and in the schools
so many benefits
that I've created, we always multi-aged, especially because oftentimes girls develop neurologically more quickly than do the boys, and therefore it's not uncommon to see a kid that would be in the 3rd grade boy be neurologically about the same maturational level as a 1st grade girl. That's not uncommon. So
yes.
you really need
Those averages and all of that are just so outdated.
And
yes.
the kids will tell you. They'll tell you, just like Alicia was saying, the child that went to the blocks. The kids will tell you by the selection of their playmates. If you've got a 7-year-old who likes to play with 5-year-olds, that's a clue.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's that watching and wondering. And I think if you take anything away from this time that we've had together, I just really would encourage you, to find that inner teaching style, that inner teacher, to step back, watch your child. And that's, we talk about that so much on our show. I always say I made Thomas, Timothy, and Maggie my number one subjects of study because they were my kids. I had to know how they ticked, what would motivate them, and so this group has really given you the context of how to do that. And so I'm super excited that they've been sharing with you. So guys, we got just less than 5 minutes, actually 4. I would love for you to talk a little bit about Iconics. I'm going to put your website up, and what can people find on your website when they go there? I'm sorry, did I pop out for a second there? Yeah, my internet's not been good today. Sorry. So if people go to your website, what are they going to find there?
Who wants to handle that? I guess I could. Well, they'll find a description of the support that Iconics can give families or groups of families. And we certainly encourage family. We believe that every church in the land ought to have a K-12 school. That's what we believe. And we know how to do that, how to support them. We will project our case management, if you will, into the classroom. We support the teacher and the parent and classrooms entirely. With a completely laid out curriculum that is organized in these image maps that can be then funneled through a whole series of playful games that allow kids to engage. It helps parents and teachers to dispense with the terrible task of lesson planning. So it really is designed to handle 3 things: the cognitive diagnosis, and lesson planning done, and engagement in the classroom. So those are the big things that make for a successful educational program, besides the natural, Lori mentioned safe, love. Our kind of tagline is safe, love, ... learning. The dots represent the science of learning. But you don't even get to do the science and the learning if you don't get the first 2 right. The safe and loved. Right. So safe and loved, of course, is what homes and churches provide. It's from the family. And frankly, that's not what's happening in the public sector. The public schools are simply our kids are in fear and right. And so it's no wonder that the learning doesn't happen. It can't happen under those conditions. You have to get the first 2 right. The kids have to be safe and loved. Then the science of learning comes in, and that's Iconics. We are experts in brain development and instruction, and we're here to help every parent. Go ahead.
Awesome. Yes. Elisa, you had something to add to that?
Yeah, so a lot of what we've touched on in our little stories here and there, you'll find in detail, especially if you're into the science or want to know
the research part of it.
The website is a great resource, but overall, it shows how we've combined neuroscience, brain development, and education to create, this custom teaching method and all of our offerings that Dr. Steve touched on, and then how to contact us, which is the best way is through email, and there should be a little orange bubble almost on every page that you can click and get in contact with us.
Awesome. And if you're listening to the broadcast and you can't see the screen, it's Iconix, ICONIX, learningcenter.com. So you can click, or I'll have it in the YouTube description after the show is over, so you can just click on it there too. But well, thank you all so much. This was a fast hour to talk, and you all had so much good information to share. I'm just excited that you were on. And we've got your group coming back a couple more times on the schedule. I have yet to put it up on the public schedule yet. We have to finalize who's going to be there and get some headshots. So, but yeah. So you haven't heard the end of this group yet. I know they have a lot of great information to share. So that'll be coming up in the next couple months. But thank you all for being here. I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedules.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us, Peggy.
What a great platform. I love everything.
Awesome. Well, it was great having you all. And thank you to our viewers who are popping on with us. And you can definitely share this video on Facebook and YouTube if you found that it was beneficial to you. And the podcast will come out on Sunday. And we're not sure about the shorter videos. My video editor is off the grid now for 2 weeks at a time. So the shorter videos are now going to be a little lagged behind the broadcast, but just know that they are coming. We're just working out that schedule. So anyways, next week, we're going to be talking about finding your inner teacher when your teaching method does not match your students. So your learning style doesn't match your students. And kind of a lot about taking what we were talking about with the play and non-play to a whole new level of trying to even understand how your student learns versus how you learn. So we're going to be talking about that next week. So you'll want to join us then. And so we'll see you all, and that's again next Tuesday. We'll be back on our regular schedule. So we'll plan on just seeing you then. So thanks, everybody. Thank you all from Iconix for joining me, and we'll see you all next Tuesday right here at 12 o'clock, 12:30 Central. Bye, everybody.
This is my skyship, Dreamer. My cargo is stories, and our destination, dreams.
With Abide Sleep Stories for Kids, you can help your children fall asleep fast and learn about God. To find these kids' bedtime stories, go to lifeaudio.com or search your favorite podcast app for Abide Stories for Kids. You can also download the Abide app for more biblical meditations at abide.com.